Good evening. If you have a carton of eggs in your fridge, and just about all of us do, you'd better check it tonight. Federal health officials have put out a nationwide alert and issued one of the most sweeping food recalls in a generation. 228 million eggs from one of the country's biggest producers after tainted eggs caused a dangerous outbreak of salmonella. It has already made hundreds of people sick in at least 3 states, and it is spreading. Dr. Richard Besser is here with advice on how to protect you and your family, but David Wright starts us off with the latest details. David?
Good evening, George. So far, nearly 300 people have become sick here in California, Colorado, and Minnesota, all of them from eggs from a single Iowa producer, tainted by a dangerous strain of salmonella. At grocery stores across California, consumers are already cautious.
Because we eat a lot of eggs, we just want to make sure that we don't get sick from them.
The tainted eggs were sold under 13 different brand names, among them Albertsons, Ralph's, and Farm Fresh. All of them come from a producer called Wright County Egg in Galt, Iowa. The cartons in question are stamped with plant numbers 1026, 1413, or 1946. The voluntary recall of eggs from those plants started Friday, with some stores reaching out directly to customers enrolled in their loyalty programs.
Hello. This call is from your local Ralph's store with an important recall announcement.
Even though all the tainted eggs have now presumably been removed from grocery store shelves, millions of them are already in people's fridges.
This outbreak could really be one of the largest linked to eggs that we've seen in 20 years.
When an outbreak like this occurs, local health authorities become food detectives.
This is shoe leather epidemiology. This is an outbreak investigation.
In Northern California, officials noticed that dozens became sick after eating a certain kind of custard pie. In Southern California, 12 people became ill after attending a catered event.
Similar incidents were being discovered in other parts of the country.
Normally, eggs become contaminated with salmonella bacteria through rodent droppings or other unsanitary conditions. But in this particular strain, Salmonella enteriditis, the hen's ovaries become infected, passing the bacteria on inside the egg.
The birds themselves aren't sick, so the farmer doesn't even know what's going on. And in the meantime, it's producing eggs that look clean and fine.
Ironically, the FDA just issued strict new guidelines for farmers designed to prevent salmonella outbreaks. Those guidelines took effect just last month, clearly not in time to prevent this outbreak. And food safety officials stress they're still in their early stages of the investigation. They fully expect this outbreak to grow. George?
Okay, thanks, David. And we're back again with Richard Besser. I think most of our viewers know you used to work at the CDC, and as we heard in the piece, this is something we haven't seen in a long time.
That's right. You know, this is a serious outbreak. Eggs have caused salmonella for a long time, but we haven't seen it. They've only been detected right now in 3 states, but they're distributed nationwide, and I expect there are cases across the country.
So what is the most important thing someone can do tonight to protect themselves?
Well, the most important thing is make sure you don't get infected now that we know about this. So you want to go home and look at your eggs, and at the end of the carton is a plant number. So check that and compare it to the numbers that we gave here on the air and that are on abcnews.com, and make sure if you have those, you take them back to the store and get a refund or throw them away.
And what are the signs, the symptoms that you may already be infected?
Well, you know, they're nondescript. You could have fever, cramps, and diarrhea. If you have those, see your doctor. But many people think about what they ate this morning or last night. You could actually have eaten something 3 days ago and just now be getting the symptoms of salmonella infection.
3 days?
3-day incubation period. So don't think if you didn't have eggs this morning that didn't cause your infection.
So everybody should go check their carton, but if you want to be extra safe, make sure you cook the eggs well?
Cook them so the white and yolk are both hard, and then eat them right away.
Okay, Richard Besser, thanks very much. And again, if you want to know exactly what 3 numbers you should be checking for when you pull those eggs out of the refrigerator, go to our website, abcnews.com/worldnews. President Obama wrapped up 3 days of campaigning and fundraising today, his last full day of work before he takes his family to Martha's Vineyard for summer break. And it probably can't come soon enough for the president, who's struggling with his lowest poll numbers ever during a summer of discontent. Here's David Curley.
Today, when I asked the president if he has any regrets jumping into the Ground Zero Islamic Center debate, a definitive response.
The answer is no regrets.
The setting was the backyard of the Whiteman family of Columbus, Ohio, where the president admitted the economy isn't growing fast enough.
A lot of it's sort of like recovering from an illness. you get a little bit stronger each day, and you take a few more steps each day.
That's far from the promised recovery summer, with administration predictions of up to 500,000 jobs created every month.
We're going to continue to create jobs on a monthly basis. It will be up and down, but the path is going to continue to be strong.
Instead, the economy has lost jobs this summer. And tonight, a new poll says only 41% of Americans approve of the president's handling of the economy. So Mr. Obama is now pleading for patience, conceding it will take years for the economy to recover.
And we're not going to get all 8 million jobs that were lost back overnight. It's going to take some time.
That is a recognition there is little the president can do to move the economic numbers before the election.
Basically, it's the only message that Democrats have. Things were bad, but we're on the right track. Trust me, it's going to get better.
Crisscrossing the country, trying to convince voters for more time, the president is making a claim the Republicans have no answer for the nation's problems.
You remember our slogan during the campaign, yes, we can? Their slogan is, no, we can't. No, we can't. It's really inspiring.
A message the president hopes will limit Democratic losses this fall. David Curley, ABC News, Columbus, Ohio.
A blistering report was released today accusing North Carolina's state crime lab of hiding or doctoring blood evidence to help prosecutors win convictions. A total of 190 cases must now be reviewed, including 3 that ended with executions. And as Steve Osensami reports, another involved the father of basketball superstar Michael Jordan.
It was the story of Greg Taylor that busted this wide open and exposed North Carolina's crime lab.
Gregory F. Taylor has proved by clinical.
In February, he was set free after serving 17 years for a murder he did not commit. He was convicted after crime lab technicians reported traces of blood on his SUV near the crime scene. But those same technicians buried additional tests that came back negative.
The practice is unacceptable.
The independent report released today covered 16 years of cases and confirmed long-held suspicions about the people at the North Carolina Crime Lab.
We were encouraged to turn over every rock and look at everything.
It said that information that was material or even favorable to the defense was often withheld and misrepresented. Of the 190 cases that will now be reviewed, 4 of the convicted are sitting on death row. 3 have already been executed, and 5 died in prison. One of those cases involves 2 men who were convicted of murdering the father of Michael Jordan.
The full case files in each of these cases should be reviewed by both prosecutors and appropriate defense counsel.
4 of the technicians responsible still work for the lab, and the state is promising they'll be disciplined. Greg Taylor says that's a start.
What is it worth to miss your daughter's 10th birthday? You know, you couldn't have given me anything for missing that.
Steve Osensami, ABC News, Atlanta.
Next to the spiraling humanitarian crisis in Pakistan, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will pledge more U.S. aid at a special session of the United Nations tomorrow. And with 2 million Pakistanis now homeless, that help cannot come fast enough. Jim Sciutto is in Pakistan tonight, where even small patches of dry land are hard to find.
This is 12-year-old Nabi's new home, a tent on the only dry land near his village, right in the middle of the highway. Life used to be good, he told us. With the floodwaters still high and dry land scarce, he has many neighbors. As night fell, we met Hayat, who lives under a tarp with his wife and 4 children.
Are these all of your kids? How many?
1, 2, 3, and 4.
4. Did you ever think you'd have to bring your family to live in the middle of the highway?
Never, he said. I had a good job, a nice house, but now this.
Even at night, the tents are surrounded by the noise and the headlights of passing traffic. The conditions here not at all livable or safe, but these people have no choice.
The flood victims are getting help from surprising sources. This is a relief camp set up by the charity arm of the Pakistani terrorist group Lashkar-e-Taiba, the same group behind the 2008 Mumbai hotel attacks, which killed more than 160 people. We've been here since soon after the floods, he said, and we have 17 camps all over the district.
Late today, ABC's Christian Amanpour asked the Pakistani foreign minister about these militant groups' camps.
Are these groups beating the government at its own relief effort? It is our duty, and I think it is also the duty of the international community not to let that vacuum be created so that extremist organizations can take advantage of that.
Starving and homeless, the victims here weren't asking any questions. Back on the highway, we asked Hayat if he would do the same.
Would you accept aid from a group like that?
What could I do, he said. When your children are hungry, you'll accept help from anyone. Jim Shudo, ABC News, Charsada, Pakistan.
There was a milestone in the Gulf recovery today. The first sea turtles to be cleaned up and nursed back to health were sent home, released back into the water by the government's top man on the spill, Admiral Thad Allen. He and scientists said the birds and animals turned out to be a lot more resilient than first thought. But what does the future hold for wildlife and the water? Bob Woodruff looked for lessons from earlier oil disasters.
Before this year, the biggest spill ever was the 1979 Ixtoc oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico.
This will be the site of the world's worst offshore oil disaster.
140 million gallons. And before BP, the most famous was the Exxon Valdez in 1989 off the coast of Alaska. Just 1/20th the size of the BP spill. Two spills, two history lessons about what may happen next after the current disaster. Let's start with the biggest spill. It actually landed here in Padre Island in Texas. In fact, it was a strip about 170 miles long and 30 feet wide. It was so bad it actually looked like a paved highway. Many people here thought it would never recover. But it did. So what happened?
To my amazement, we saw recovery in just a couple of years. The shrimp came back in about 2 years.
But when Dr. West Tunnel went back to Mexico this year, he found oil tar still soaked into the marshes. Fishermen told him 31 years later, the oysters still have not returned. Which brings us to that famous spill, the Exxon Valdez in 1989. More than 21,000 gallons of oil still infest the shore. Alaska's herring have never fully recovered. But in the Gulf, animals and plants might fare better.
The Gulf of Mexico is a hugely resilient body of water. There's the equivalent of 1 to 2 super tankers per year that seep into the Gulf of Mexico waters naturally. It populates the entire Gulf of Mexico with petroleum-eating bacteria. There's lots of them out there that are munching away on this oil all the time.
So a third history lesson in the making, but probably not the last. Bob Woodruff, ABC News, Padre Island, Texas.